Hi everybody, my name's Brian, I'm an addict.
Hi, Brian.
Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. If anyone here represents a media agency, please contact Ray E. The members of North Central Indiana Area Narcotics Anonymous welcome you to the second annual We Grow with Love convention. We'd like to thank you for joining us with this celebration of recovery. We are deeply grateful to Narcotics Anonymous and find great joy in being able to express our gratitude here with you, our family. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are certain that when you come together to share our lives and our love with each other, a miracle happens. Our recovery takes hard work, courage, and commitment. Those are the things that carry us through as we seek the spiritual growth that comes from working the 12 steps. Never alone. We do this together and for each other, knowing that we need each other because more than anything else, we grow with love. The preface to the basic text begins, "The full fruit of a labor of love lives in the harvest, and that always comes in its right season. For us, our season has come." Would someone please read Why Are We Here?
I'm an addict. My name's Ed.
Hi,
And my family. Why are we here? Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed the use ahead of our welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide, but addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, or psychiatry. None of these methods were significant for us. Our disease always resurfaced, will continue to provide progress until in desperation we sought help in each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffer from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. His name is John R., and he's from Bloomington, Indiana. John?
Hi, John.
I'm an addict. My name's John.
Hi, John.
One of the first things I'd like to do is kind of traditional in my area. Is I'd like to ask you all if we could please begin with a moment of silence. Follow it with the Serenity Prayer. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. I'm an addict. My name's John.
Hi, John.
That feels better. Topic of what is serenity. I was joking around with another addict a little while ago. I said, hell, I don't know. Kind of an appropriate topic for me at this point in my life. It's like serenity, I think, is one of those things that I think we talk a lot about sometimes in meetings. It's not something that I use a whole lot in terms of when I'm sharing. I don't talk about serenity. It's always one of those things that has always struck me as I think we kind of like confuse what serenity is, you know. I mean, when I look up serenity in a dictionary definition of serenity says that it's clarity of mind. And sometimes I hear it thrown around like it's like this great calmness and peacefulness, and you know. And it always has killed me. I remember when I came around at 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, and looking at the back of those key tags, and it says clean and serene for 30 days. Well, I may have been abstinent at 30 days, but I don't know how serene I was, you know. Serenity is one of those things that I believe means a clarity of mind. I think it's one of those things that is a goal that I might strive towards. It's like, I guess I equate it to some level of self-acceptance and some freedom from self-obsession. And that's what I start getting through working the steps of this fellowship, through working the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. I start learning a little bit about freedom from self-obsession, which allows some clarity, a little bit of clarity start happening in my mind, a little bit of freedom from those obsessive thoughts, that bounce around in there that I'm sure nobody in this room can relate to at all. It's one of those things that it's not a word I'm real comfortable with. I think maybe because when I used to go somewhere else for my recovery, I used to hear them say that word a lot, serenity, 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 like some kind of magic, whatever. I know that as a byproduct of working these steps, I start getting some clarity in my mind and in my life. And right now, I think I look at that as maybe being the opposite of unmanageability. And where I'm at in my life today is a lot of unmanageability. Because I got to share a little bit about where I'm at. I don't believe in sitting up here like I got all the answers, And I don't believe in like sitting here like for 20, 30 minutes and try to pretend like I got all the answers. Because I believe a workshop is a lot for you all. I mean, to me, it's a real honor to be asked to share at a workshop. But the purpose of this workshop is not for you all to sit there and listen to me, all my wonderful words of wisdom, but to be able to participate, because this is a we fellowship. At least that's what I've been taught. Where I'm at in my life today is my wife and I are looking at moving from the only... I got clean in this region, and I was given the opportunity through this fellowship to begin doing some things in my life that I never ever thought I'd ever do. I got the opportunity to get an education, got an opportunity to be a parent in recovery, got an opportunity to do a lot of things that I never wanted to do before. And there's been a lot of gifts, and I've grown a lot through all of those things. And we're at a point in our lives today where there's a lot of good stuff happening, but along with all of it is a lot of unmanageability at the same time. We're looking at moving to another state, another region, leaving that place where we had become real comfortable. Maybe a more appropriate word would be complacent. And moving 800 miles away to a totally different thing, but Narcotics Anonymous exists there as well, and it feels like home down there. But there's still reservations, and there's still some fear, and I think with that fear comes the unmanageability, and trying to make sure that it gets done just right. You know how we are. We start getting obsessed and wrapped up in making sure that it gets done just perfectly, exactly right, that on this day this is going to happen, on that day that's going to happen, and on that day that's going to happen. And we start painting all them scenarios out, and most of the time it never goes the way that I planned it anyhow. But that's caused a little bit of unmanageability, and for me that is the opposite of serenity. And I think that in terms of getting that clarity of mind, that's one reason I'm here this weekend. With all this unmanageability, this convention was one more thing that we had to do. It was just one more thing, and we were talking about it and getting honest, and I was saying, I really don't want to go. I'd rather stay home and pack, or stay home and get all these loose ends that we got to get tied up and we're getting real crazy about. Got to get all that stuff taken care of. And since we got here last night and all day today, I've had this real strong feeling that this is where I need to be, that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of that clarity. I think the first time I ever experienced a clarity of mind was the last time I used. And I woke up, passed out behind a dope man's house, and I pissed my pants and burned a huge hole in my finger. And it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was late fall. It was about 15 degrees that night. I was freezing. And something woke me up, and I believe today that was my higher power. But something woke me up, and I knew that if I didn't do something, I really was going to die. And I didn't want to die. I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. And that, for me, was the first time I ever experienced that moment of clarity. You know, that clarity of mind that I believe is what serenity means. I think we get wrapped up sometimes, and I know I did when I first got here. I look at things, because I'm one of them real smart addicts, you know. And I look at something and I think I know what it means. Like the first time I looked at the first step of our fellowship and I saw addiction, and well, what's that mean? Well, that means drugs, you know. I'm here to tell you that first step ain't about dope. It's about the disease of addiction. And that was a moment of clarity for me too, when I started realizing what the first step was about. And I had like a 1.5 years abstinent. And I finally realized what that first step was talking about. But we sit there and we rewrite. I know I do. I'll rewrite things in my mind. And they look to be something other than what they are. And I'm real grateful that my sponsor taught me what a dictionary is. You know? And he told me to look things up in a dictionary. And that's how I was taught to work the steps. And through doing those things, there's been those moments of clarity, those moments of freedom from self-obsession. And like the time when I first became aware of what the first step was, that was another example of that moment of clarity in my life. We were at a camp out in central Indiana. And we'd been up late the night before, and there's some people in this room that have heard this little story before. But we were up late the night before, and it's the first time we'd ever been at anything like this before. And I guess we rolled to bed about 4 o'clock in the morning. And my wife woke up. We were in this musty tent, and my wife woke up with an asthma attack probably about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was real pissed off because she woke me up. And she got up, and she went to go get her medicine. And my oldest daughter, at the time, was my only daughter. She was 4. And she woke up, and she says, "Daddy, I got to go to the bathroom real bad." And I told her, "Well, wait until Barb comes back. She can take you." You know, my kid. And I told her, anyways, we were laying there, and a few minutes later, she was like, "Daddy, I got to go real bad." So I copped a real attitude, and I was putting my pants on, and as I was putting my pants on, I was debating whether to put my shoes on or not. And there's this gravel walkway you had to walk across to get to the bathrooms at this campground. And there were chunks of gravel about this big, you know, about the size of softballs, you know, nice and sharp edges, you know. And I said, "Oh, to hell with it. I'm not going to put my shoes on." And I picked my daughter up, and I carried her across that gravel walkway in my socks, getting madder and madder and madder every step of the way. And by the time I got to the bathrooms, and my wife came walking out of the bathroom, I blew up. I was Mount St. Helens all over the place. And I'm screaming and yelling at her because she took too long getting back to the bathroom, and I had to get up and carry my daughter to the bathroom in my socks, right? Had to. And people, there's about 150 other addicts at this camp out, and they're rolling out of their tents. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. We're standing there screaming and yelling at each other. And she went to go get cleaned up. I took my daughter back to the campsite, got her dressed, pushed her out on the playground. I sat there and waited for my wife to come out of the bathroom. After she came out, you know, I did the old sorry-itis thing, you know, I'm sorry. And like it's going to fix everything, you know. And I went to go cleaned up. Well, I didn't see it at the time, And at that point in time, I still couldn't see the disease in action in my life without the dope. But my wife went back to the campsite, and see, I was fine. I was feeling just fine with myself. Well, she went back to the campsite, and she started splitting kindling to make breakfast, and she just about chopped her thumb off. And I came back out of the bathroom, and there's this huge crowd around our campsite, and somebody comes up to me and says, "John, Barb cut herself bad." And we went to the hospital, and we got stitches. And when we got back to the camp out, the very first set of workshops that were going on were called The Effects of Our Insanity. And for the first time, I could see the effects of my insanity on the people around me without the dope. And for me, that was a real strong moment of clarity. I could see, and I finally understood and accepted, I believe at that point, I began to accept the first step. Up until that point, I'd heard people talking about it, and I knew it up here in between my ears, but there's a real difference between my ears and in my heart. The sixth step was another one of those where there was a real moment of clarity, because I got to the sixth step after thinking the fourth step was like this real horrible heavy hitter. I thought it was like the real rough step that there was, and I got to step 6, and it said, when it talked about being entirely ready. And so I said, okay. And I sat there and I waited. And I thought that the moment of clarity for me with the sixth step came when I began to realize that the sixth step didn't say anything about God coming and taking those defects of character away from me. It was all about me becoming willing. And that was a real moment of clarity for me. So, those kind of examples for me are what my understanding of the word serenity is, clarity. I see it in my life. Every now and then I get little glimpses of it. Through the 11th step, I get a little bit more of it. And I feel real good. But, man, something that feels good and it's good for me, for some reason I don't like to do. I think it has a lot to do with the nature of this disease. But the 11th step has allowed me to get even a few more glimpses of that clarity of mind. And I can see a lot more where God's working in my life. And I can see what God's will is for me from time to time when I get out of my own way. And I can start trying to follow that. I think a lot of that's got to do with where I'm at in my recovery today in terms of this move. I see a lot of God's will working in this whole thing. A lot of things have come together. Somebody taught me a long time ago that if it works out, it's God's will. If it doesn't work out, well, you know whose will it was. And it's working out, so I got a real good feeling in my heart. Despite the fear that exists, I've got a lot of faith today that God's working in this whole thing. And there's been those moments of clarity along with this whole move, along with everything. And obsessing about, well, we got jobs down there. 3 weeks before we're supposed to move, we didn't have a house. We're going to move 2 kids and a whole house full of stuff and sleep in our van, right, and go to work. And it all came together this last week. So that tells me, I guess, that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and that's another one of those moments of clarity. Serenity, I guess. I don't know. I believe we're all prejudiced to one degree or another, and I guess I have a little bit of prejudice with that word serenity. Because clarity for me is so much more of an apt term. It really applies more, at least in my life and in my recovery. Because I'd like to get some point, I think my goal in recovery someday is to get to where I'm completely comfortable inside my own skin. And that hasn't happened all the time today, but it happens a lot more than what it ever used to. And I'm a lot more okay with who I am than what I ever used to be. And I guess equaling that to be clarity or serenity, that's one of the goals that I have in my life today in recovery. And I guess that's probably, I don't know how long I shared. Wasn't keeping track of it. But like I said, I believe that these workshops are for you all, not necessarily for me to sit up here and sound good. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass. Thanks for letting me share.
Our speaker's name is Connie C.
Hi. I'm an addict named Connie. Whoa, a little bit nervous. What is serenity? Well, no one ever explained it to me. When I got here, I didn't have a clue. Serenity to me today comes from doing the next right thing. And that was a real slow process, When I got here, I was too afraid to ask what to do, People told me, keep coming back. And that's all I did for a real long time. And that's what I still do today, I just keep showing up. And every day I get a little more serene. What I have been doing lately is talking to my higher power a lot more, bringing God into every aspect of my life. So I'm really getting into prayer and meditation on a real rigorous basis. I start my day with a prayer, which I have always done. For a long time it was just, God, keep me clean today. And today it's a lot more in depth than that. Working on a 6-step, and I have a wonderful sponsor in my life right now. God surely does for me what I can't do for myself. What I do on a daily basis is write out one character defect, how I acted out on it, how that made me feel. And then I have to give equal paper space to one asset that I have in my life. How I acted on that asset that day and how that made me feel. And that's a real revealing thing. I have to do this every day for 30 days, and then we're going to go over it. And every time I stop, it starts over, the beginning, 30 more days of writing, and I have stopped a couple of times. So I have been on this for a while, and I really like it, I really like it, because, it says in our book that more will be revealed. And the more I look inward at me and what I'm all about, the more that is revealed to me about me, the less I have to focus on you and what makes you work. I know I'm not unique in this, that I want to look at your shit and not mine, so I don't have to work on Connie. And when that quit working for me in my life, I had to start working on me, And I'm okay with me today. It is okay for me to be in my skin today. I can live in this body without having to put a chemical in it or anything else. I don't have to go on spending sprees. I don't have to run. I don't have to do those geographical cures. I don't have to try to fix myself with other people today. And that is serenity for me. In this chaotic life that we live in, and when everything is going wrong, what I think I don't have to use today. Sometimes someone will come in where I work and say, well, how are you doing? And I'm just so full of the Spirit, I just want to say, man, I don't have to put a chemical in my body today. I don't have to do all that insane stuff that I had to do for so many years. And I am so at peace with myself and so serene. And all I can say is I'm doing real good, And I am. I'm growing in this program. And I can see that for the first time, And that's a real spiritual awakening for me. I don't really think that serenity is something that I can explain to you. If you don't have it in your life, keep coming back. You'll get it one of these days, you know. It comes from working the steps and doing the next right thing. And when you keep screwing up and getting full of pain and having nothing but pain in your life, you'll know you're not doing the next right thing. You know, I mean, that's the way it works for me. And it's real easy. It's just, after a while, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired in recovery, you'll start working. You'll pick out someone in the program who has serenity in their life. And that's what I did, you know. Had to listen and watch and learn and become willing. It was a process of becoming willing to say that I don't have all the answers and that I need help. You know, I know today that what my head tells me and what my disease tells me is not what that book tells me. You know, if the solution isn't practical, it isn't spiritual. You know, and I have to apply that in my life, and I have to be aware of that I'm getting caught up in life. And I really believe for me today, my primary purpose in life is to stay clean and carry the message. It's not about going to work and making money and having a nice home and a nice car, although I do that on a daily basis because of this program. But I know every day when I get up that my primary purpose is to work on my relationship with God, work on my relationship with myself, and carry the message to the addict who still suffers. And from that, I reap all the benefits that have eluded me all my life. You know, when I got here, I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to do anything. And you people taught me what I needed to know. You know, you loved me until I could love myself. And that is when I got serenity in my life, is when I got okay with me. When I got okay enough with me to let someone else in, then I started feeling the serenity. When I got okay with me and let someone else in, and that person relapsed and it hurt me, all those walls went back up. I had to take that to my sponsor and say, you know, I'm just not willing to do this. I'm just not willing to let people into my life. And I had to do a lot of writing and praying about that we grow through pain. And pain is what got me here. And I didn't want any more pain. And just recently I had a sponsee relapse. And I love this woman with all my heart. You know, I just wanted to love her to death. And she chose to go back out. And I thought, that's it. I'm just sponsoring the girls I've got now. I'm not going to sponsor anybody else. And a woman asked me to be her sponsor. And I said I'd get back with her. I went and talked to my sponsor about it. And I talked about that fear and that pain of having someone else go back out. And I had to make a decision that I had to sponsor this woman. And it has been the best thing that I have done for myself in quite a while. This woman is real young in recovery, and she's real willing. She works the steps, she takes suggestions, she does everything that I would never do. She's doing things at 90 days clean, and it took me 18 months to get to, you know. And God just puts people in my life. who make me feel good about myself. God puts people in my life who are attracted to what I have. You know, I'm real nervous right now. I have a hard time saying what I want to express. And I know that's okay, because one-on-one we could talk and I could carry my message a lot better. You know, I'm just really nervous, and I'm real grateful to be clean. Serenity, I have serenity today for being here, because this is what I have to do for myself. You know, my biological family is real sick, and right before I made the decision to come up here yesterday, a whole lot of stuff happened, and everyone wanted me to stay at home. But I know what I have to do for me today. I know that I have to come up here and recover. I have to come up here and get what I need, or I'm not going to be any good to anybody, you know. And I know that they'll have me using before I have them up here with me. And it was a struggle, you know, those old ties, and all those that old codependency shit. I got to do what you want me to do, or you won't like me, you won't love me. Well, I don't get that here. I get unconditional love here, whether I do what you want me to do or not. I know I'm loved here, I'm wanted here, I'm appreciated here, and that's all I ever wanted all my life. And who wouldn't want that? And all you got to do is keep showing up, you know, keep coming back. I owe my life to Narcotics Anonymous. That's all I got. Thanks.
Before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind you are being taped. If you do not wish to be taped, please let me know so we can turn off the machine. If anybody's welcome to come up and share now.
I'm an addict called Bob. You know, I know a lot about what Serenity isn't. But you know, the longer I stay around, the more I see that Serenity's a goal that I'm moving towards. You know, the addict who shared at the beginning talked about a clarity of mind, and where I find that clarity coming from is with the clarity of purpose. You know, remembering that where I am today as a result of this program, as a result of my developing relationship with the higher power. And you know, it seems like the longer I stay around, the more important that relationship becomes. I'm at a point right now in my recovery where things are pretty chaotic, and I'm dealing with some anger, I'm dealing with some fear of success, and you know, as I let those things take over, you know, I lose that sense of direction, and that you know, really for the first time in the few years that I've been around here, I've really had a sense of hope lately, you know, and I really feel the direction that I'm headed in, and I really feel a higher power working in my life. But it seems like lately things have been coming at me real fast. And one of my character defects used to be being a know-it-all. And now I'm in a situation where I work, where people are coming to me and wanting to draw off my experience. And I'm not handling that any better. You know, I used to be a know-it-all because I had to have your acceptance. And now these people are accepting me at face value. They're not looking at me like an addict. You know, they're not. For so long, I had blown any sense of trust with anybody that I was connected to, that I didn't feel any acceptance. And then I came into these rooms and was accepted for who I was. And now, you know, that's beginning to open up into some other areas of my life. And I'm not handling it real well because I've lost some of that focus. You know, I get to feeling uncomfortable and I forget to maintain that contact with my higher power, you know, all through the day, as opposed to, you know, I still take my quiet time at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. But, you know, I need to carry that with me. And you know, that's where I get that clarity. And with that clarity comes some peace of mind. You know, and I feel that today. Even though things are pretty crazy. And even though there's things that I have learned to do that I haven't done yet to get through it. You know, I have those tools at my disposal because I've been actively involved in this fellowship and made my recovery a priority. You know, that's where I've developed a certain amount of peace of mind on any given day. You know, I remember those first couple of years where I was a living, breathing anxiety attack. And I mean, that was real. And I don't have that today. Because for the most part I've managed to stay focused. And you know, I know that as long as I continue to do that, that I'll continue to see that direction that I'm headed. You know, for me, serenity it's a goal. It's not an end. It's not some magical spiritual thing that's just going to land on me because I don't use anymore. It takes some effort and a continuing effort. It was real important for me to be here this weekend. You know, there's a lot of folks I don't know, and I'm not doing the best job of reaching out, but for me it just helps being around other people who I know think like I do and feel like I do. You know, it lets me relax. And I haven't been real relaxed lately, and I'm real glad to be here. Thanks for letting me share.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I'm an addict. Serenity, something I need, that's for sure. Like he was saying, he knows what serenity is. I know that one too. I know that one real good. For me, serenity is clarity, peace of mind. For me, you know, not acting crazy is serenity for me. You know, I see serenity in my surroundings. When I'm here, everything is like so peaceful. You know, and I wish I was a tree. You know, they just kind of are there. They get the sun shining on them. Don't get no trouble. You know, it's peaceful. I like to be in this environment. You know, and I can see my higher power all around me. My higher power is nature. Nature brings me serenity. I feel like I'm safe. I can just enjoy it. Me and my friend, we drove down the street where I used to get high the other day, and I was like, wow, look, there's flowers there. Wow, there's some birds over there. I never noticed stuff like that before. I didn't even know there was nice houses over there. So wow, look. I was so out of it. And I didn't notice a lot of things. Being able to notice is part of serenity for me. I was scared of going outside in daytime and stuff. I couldn't even see. I'd be up for 4 or 5 days. I couldn't even see in this. Now, wow, I can even look up at the sky and it's sunny and it doesn't hurt my eyes like it used to. It can even be cloudy and it hurt my eyes. I'd be up so long. And that's clarity for me. Being able to see all the crazy things I did and what I'm doing now is a big difference. I never thought I'd be sitting in a room full of addicts and not be using. That's serenity for me. Not having people wondering, well, what do you got? How much money you got? Stuff like that. It's kind of nice. I'm real glad to be here. I'm real glad to hear people talk. Like you were saying about other people feeling how you feel. Because for the longest time I didn't think anybody felt like me. I thought I was the worst person in the world. I don't have to feel like that anymore. My higher power is revealing things to me. Not as much as I want him to, but slowly, because I want it all right now. I gotta sit back and wait for him. He'll let me know when it's my time. Thanks for being here.
Those who'd like to share, would you please come out front so the mic will pick you up so you can be recorded? Thank you.
Come back. Okay.
Grateful to be here with you guys today. You people my higher power in my program that I haven't used, and that to me truly is a miracle. I like serenity. It's something I truly enjoy when I have it, and I miss it like hell when I don't. I know that it is within my power to have it or not to have it. That when I allow God's will to work in my life, that's when I feel the most serene, and that's why I'm here today. I love being outside. To me, being out in God's world and listening to the birds and being with the trees and feeling the breeze, that's serenity for me. I'm able to take all those worries and stresses and pain that I have inside and set it free when I'm outside here. But when I'm home, and in my own little closed environment, it's a lot easier to take it and gnaw on it, and keep that pain and infection inside myself. And to me, this is my medicine. Going to meetings, coming to retreats, sharing at workshops like this, some of the things that I have and some of the things that I need to get out of me. I know that inner peace happens when I believe that my higher power's will can restore me to sanity. And sanity, serenity, they're very similar to me today. I know how insane my life was when I was using, and I definitely had no serenity. And today when I allow myself to be sane, and that doesn't mean work, productive, pay my bills, do all those responsible type things that I do today. That means going to meetings, 12-stepping addicts, staying on that phone that one extra minute, talking to that one extra addict. That gives me the love that I need that I can give off to somebody else. Because you never know when somebody else that you talk to is going to be the person that keeps you clean that day that you need them. And reaching out to people is real important to me. And I've always been more of a loner. That was part of my disease. And I can remember that even back from my childhood, you know, because I never had hardly any friends. And I always was alone, me and my books. That was my best friend in my little fantasy world. You know, and that only got magnified when I started using drugs. And the 20 years of using, yeah, I was a pretty sick individual when I got clean a few 24 hours ago. But I'm grateful today that I can think about those times and their memories, you know, that I don't have to worry about staying clean today, because through the grace of God in this program, the urge to use has been lifted from me today. You know, the only thing that I have to worry about is all those interpersonality traits that made me an addict to begin with, you know, and those are the things that I have to work on. And when I set those things free, I mean, it you know, if I let of my character defects go, anger, hostility, resentment, prejudice, ego, opinionativeness, or however you'd say that, you know, and thinking that you know everything, when I allow people to be who they are, you know, and I allow myself to be who I am, then I have a serenity, you know. But when I try to force my will on situations, then I am totally inserene, and I find that everything truly goes badly. And I'm just real grateful to be here. I have the inner peace in me right now that I've needed for so long. It's well worth the hassle of getting here and the driving, you know. And it's great to be here with people that know how you feel, you know. And I'm glad that I can be here again. And I want you guys to keep coming back. It works when you work it. That's all I got.
I'm an addict. My name's Barb. Hi, Barb. I'm starting to unwind a little bit. I'm starting to feel like there's a little bit more serenity in my life, I guess you might say. Serenity is not one of those things I pursue. I found out early on in my in the enlightenment of my disease, you might say, the early days of my recovery when I was learning about my disease, my life wasn't going to be real serene in the classical sense that I heard a lot of people talking about it, like everything's nice and uncomplicated, and you know, I don't have any conflict in my life, and you know, my living's not like that. My living is fast and busy, and a lot of times at work there are these ethical things going on which just screw me all up inside, you know. And I sometimes wish I could feel real serene, you know. And the fact of the matter is that's not my life. That's not what I deal with on a daily basis. And I don't really try to make my life serene in that respect, although I do, like another speaker mentioned, try to work on that clarity, try to figure out where I am in it. You know, the 12 steps and 12 traditions are my framework for how to look at my life and the issues that are going on around me. Coming here this weekend, you know, I just finished a job. I've been employed by this place for 5 years, and lots of stuff was going on where I worked that I didn't agree with, and there were powers greater than myself that were not changing or listening to me. And it was very clear to me that that was not the place for me to be anymore. And in that respect, you know, I felt some serenity. I felt like, okay, I made a decision, I can go on, I can move on, and I can do something about that. I still had to work out my employment. And I'd just been feeling like I had a big old hole in my guts for a few weeks now. Well, actually for a long time, and I've been trying to like fill it up with meetings and work on it that way. And coming in here yesterday, and then this morning, I kept thinking, I've got to get serene. You know, I kept thinking, oh, it's so beautiful around here. I gotta chill out. I gotta relax. I gotta feel a certain way. And it's like, it ain't happening. You know, first of all, I've got my 2 kids with me, and that don't happen. And then when I started looking at that and accepting the fact that that's where I was at, You know, that's when things start to feel a little more clear. When I stop fighting what actual circumstances are, and start to work on the acceptance, surrender to them, and acceptance of them. That's when I'm starting to feel more serene, I guess you might say. More that I just know where my place is, you know, in the swimming environment around me, you know, of all the people that are coming and going and things that are happening, going on. I've got it, my little one over there is getting incisors of teeth right now, and they're hurting her, and it's, tell me, it's hurting me, you know. And sometimes it's just being aware of the fact, particularly the doctor thought she was getting an earache. No, she's just getting teeth. And being aware of that fact helps a lot. I don't have to feel frustrated with her like she's acting bad or acting wrong. Obviously, she was acting like something was wrong, and that's what it is. Sometimes just being aware for me of what's happening, what's going on around me, really helps with my serenity, my acceptance. I guess is really what I'm trying to say, my acceptance of what's going on, and then how I'm responding to it. Am I responding appropriately to things, you know, or do I need to share? You know, it's like this morning I was starting to get all screwed up inside, and looked at myself and said, am I responding appropriately to this? I went back and I put the kids down for their nap and stuff, and I started getting out the basic text to read because I wanted to get that serenity, right? I wanted those magic words. I wanted that quick fix. I read about 2 pages just for today, and I thought, and my mind was just wandering around and looking at the lake, and I finally said, this is what I need. I need to just sit and chill and look at the lake, you know, and I did that for a while, and it felt good. And then I went and got a storybook out of the car, a kitty book, and read it. Helped a lot, you know. I could follow that, you know. Right now I'm just not really concentrating real well, but that's okay. You know, I got to start with the basics. I had to start down here. I'm not way up here with my serenity and my spiritual, you know, la la la. That self-acceptance, really, I have to work it. I have to really, really work on it some days. And I'm real glad that, you know, this camp out's here. This is obviously where I need to be to kind of chill, look at what's going on. My life is real stressful right now. I was reading in the paper that moving is the 3rd most stressful event in a person's life. Well, you know, addicts moving, you know, that's even worse, I'm sure, because we don't make anything just regular. We've got to really blow it up. So, thanks for listening to me.
I bet we'd have a lot more people sharing if we didn't have to come up front here, huh? My name's Connie, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Connie.
I'm real grateful to be here. I have a lot of kids with me today, and I just kind of came up for the day, but it's real nice to be here. And this is the first convention I've ever been to or anything, and it seems really, really neat. So, you know, when they get older, hopefully I'll be able to attend a lot more. But a big thing for me with my serenity is keeping the focus, like Connie was saying, keeping the focus off of everybody else and on myself. Because it's like I just don't have any serenity when I'm thinking about everybody else and how I think they're screwing up, or what I think they should be doing, or why doesn't so-and-so love me, or, you know, just the whole thing. And it's like, if I can keep the focus on myself, it like narrows it down to at least one person, which somehow makes it easier for me. And it's like self-acceptance is part of it too. You know, I mean, we all have days, I'm sure, where we hear our old tapes, everybody telling us that we're bad, you know, and no good, we're never going to make it, we're ugly, we're fat, we're this, we're that. And that, you know, on those days, which I mean, I still have plenty of those days, and I have no serenity. I can't get my serenity because I feel bad about myself. And but then there's those days too when I still look the same as I did the day before in the mirror. I'm still that same person who, but somehow I managed to overcome all that negative pile of crap, and I can say, gee, I don't have to sit here and go through 20 outfits. I can just put on this, and I feel good today because I feel good about myself. And that is a big part of my serenity, because it just makes me feel like I'm more in tune with my higher power or something. Like I'm not distracted or something, by this other stuff, and it helps me a lot. And when I can get that way, and some days, like I said, I just can't. It's like somebody put an anchor around my ankle when I was asleep that night, and then when I woke up, I was sinking down to the bottom of the muck, and just the whole day I'm trying to get out, but I can't really quite make it, and on those days, the biggest thing I can do is just accept that that's where I'm at. I go around and I say, I feel really crappy today to everybody. I say I need support. I'm in a bad place today. I don't feel good about myself. I mean, I put my finger right on it, because that's the only form of serenity or whatever sanity that I can get that day, is just to say, grab a hold of my fellow addicts and just say, I'm feeling really crappy about myself. I don't like the way I look, or I'm hearing these things in my head, and I just tell them what they are. And they don't always go away, but it helps. It helps me to get it out there in the open. It seems less like a demon, then it's not as scary. And to tell myself that kind of that one day at a time thing, where this is just going to be today. Tomorrow can be different. Tomorrow probably will be different. This is just today that I feel like total shit. And part of my serenity too is doing what I need to do. Like learning how to be a productive member of society. That is also part of my serenity. I don't think that I could be somebody who never worked on learning how to be more responsible and productive and all this stuff. And I don't think I could get my personal serenity completely from not working at that, because being an addict, I'm sure we all came from the same place, totally irresponsible, couldn't hold down a job, couldn't do anything that had anything to do with society, couldn't take care of children, couldn't, have a car, just the whole thing. And it's all been a big struggle, but that's a part of my serenity, is learning how to be a productive member of society and learning about responsibility. And when I take my responsibilities, even though it's hard to do a lot of things, and I do them to the best of my ability, then I feel some serenity from it. It was hard, but I did it. I mean, I didn't do it perfect, but I did the best job I could today, and all that kind of stuff. And I get a lot of my serenity from everybody else in the program. I just reach out, I grab a hold of them, and I just suck it out of them whatever I can get, because it helps me too. So that's kind of like what my serenity and stuff is all about. And I don't have it all the time, but I do have it sometimes, and it feels good. And I'm really grateful to be here.
Hi, my name's Mike, and I'm an addict in recovery. Serenity, I had to look that up in the dictionary when I first come in the program. I read it was to be calm, to relax, and to me it's to be able to enjoy life and not have to depend on drugs and alcohol to make me a happy person. And happiness comes from within. And then I'm not always serene at work. I get kind of angry and let things get to my head. And but when I go to an NA meeting, I can sit there and be the most relaxed person in the world, and sit and listen to other people share. It's a place where I can go and share what's bugging me and what's not bugging me, what's making me feel serene today, and be able to share it with people that really care about me. This is serenity to me, being able to not have to worry about anything. I mean, this is a vacation. I'm on vacation, and I'm enjoying it. And you can't buy serenity. It comes from within. I love you people and this program, and it's given me a whole new life. And I don't know. I'm just happy to be here, and that's all I got.
Hi everybody, my name's Brian, I'm an addict. What is serenity? As I was growing up, as a young man, I seen other people, adults, and what I wanted to be was this old man, with gray hair, and what kids all would come around and they would sit on my lap. And just being, really at peace with myself and being happy with the environment around me. And that's what I've been trying to achieve, to be really at peace. And sometimes when we strive to do those things that we want so much, we get the opposite. When we try so hard, we get confused and frustrated. I was reading in the Just for Today that we learn from our mistakes, mostly, but we also learn from doing good things in life. We learn when we apply, when something good comes out of it, when we've done it right, we learn that way, but we learn mostly from our mistakes. Serenity means a lot to me. When I can get out of what other people are doing and get in touch with myself, I get some sanity there. When I can focus there. But also, if I focus too much on where I'm at, what am I doing, and all the negatives or the positive, and staying inside myself too much, I can get frustrated there, and I don't get any serenity either. How I achieve serenity is by practicing what I learned from the people in this program, and that is working the steps, going to meetings, and talking to my sponsor, and doing what my higher power wants of me to do today. Not what Brian wants, but what my higher power wants. And that's what's really hard, because I still want to do what I want to do, even though sometimes it's the wrong things. But we have to go our own route, and find out, what we are doing wrong, and learn from that. Learn from our mistakes. And when we learn from our mistakes, we don't have to repeat them over and over. Once we've done them, we don't have to do them over again. We've learned. We don't have to go through that pain once we've gone through it. And that there in itself is a lot of serenity. getting out of ourselves and getting in touch. What God wants us to do today, not what we want and not what other people want. My sponsor helps a lot with that. And my higher power helps with that. And the people in the program help. And the basic text helps. That's all I got to share. Thanks. Are there any more comments? Shall we close with a group hug and a prayer? Come on. All right. Good idea, Mike. Let's go out there.